Welcome to Women Winning Divorce with your host, Heather Quick. Heather brings over 20 years of law experience that advocates and empowers women to achieve happier and healthier lives. Each week, we provide knowledge and guidance on different aspects of family law to help lead women through the difficult and emotional legal challenges that they are facing. Listen in as she discusses issues including divorce, custody, alimony, paternity, narcissism, mediation, and other family law issues to provide insight on the journey of women winning divorce. Welcome to the show. I'm Julie Morgan, and I'm joined by your host, Heather Quick. How you doing, Heather?
I am great. How are you, Julie?
I'm doing very well. It's the beginning of the year. You know, we talked about goals and that type of thing earlier. You know, it's going to be a good 2023, don't you think?
Oh, I know it. I know it is.
I agree. So today's topic is divorce and the female breadwinner. Tell me, Heather, are there many women that are breadwinners in a marriage?
So this is interesting because the way it would be defined, I don't know who defines it, but whatever, for the Census Bureau, whatever it is, I don't know, the government, right? Whoever defines it is she's bringing in more than 60% of the income. That is what's considered the breadwinner. But I think it's a great thing to talk about because so many women are professionals, executives, and, you know, as we talk about it, like, are it equal or more, maybe, of what their husbands are bringing in. And they're going to have different concerns thinking about divorce than women who aren't. It's just different, right? They're going to have a different set of concerns and fears that they want to have, answers to.
Oh, I like that. Okay, so bringing in more than 60% of the income. Okay, that's an interesting statistic. I didn't realize that. Now, I would know one of the reasons, and of course, you don't have to have a college degree in order to bring in more money, but are more women graduating from college than men? That could be one of the reasons.
Yeah, so since the 90s, women have earned college degrees at a higher rate than men. And in 2019, 2020, 58% of all degrees were earned by women. But I will tell you, now I'm just getting, here we go. You know, every now and then I got a little side bit because I do get a lot of information from my 13-year-old son. And, the gamers are really where it's at, and they're like at 20s, and he tells me how much money they make all the time. So I don't know, but I think we can correlate the college degrees with the increase in, women making more money. So I'm going to go with that, despite the solid, advice I've received from my son as to why he should game more often, because he can bring so much money to the family.
I was thinking, I was like, does he want to do YouTube and just play games on YouTube?
I think he likes to just talk a lot, and so he's got all kind of ideas about a lot of things that usually end up with the request being, Mom, buy me this. I have yet to see a return, but I am going to hold out hope.
Oh, yeah.
There's the sneaker business. There's the gaming business. There's, let's go. We need to go to this big gaming event. I'm like, I'm not going there. We are not doing that. So let's go to school and let's stay on that path for a while. But anyway, it's just this whole, again, like we said, you can make money doing so many different things nowadays, including and you know what, for women, I will say this, like TikTok and Instagram, like there is so much. It's insane. I haven't fully embraced that, but yet, so you can be dancing. I wish I was a dancer. I know we've talked about that before, but anyway, I digress. Let's get back on to women making money, which really that's what we're all talking about.
Yes. You know what? So I think about this. I wonder if divorce is more common when the woman earns more.
I don't know. I don't know that I have the stats on that. We do have the stats on that. So the divorce rates rise 50% when the wife earns more than her husband.
What?
I know. You're just not going to put up with this much nonsense, huh? Like, I can buy somebody else for that. I don't need you leaving your socks on the floor.
That is something, and I wonder what's the reason behind that. Is it because the way it makes him feel? You know what I mean? Like, who cares?
I don't know. You know what I think, Julie? Like, and this is just from, I think when you feel that you have more freedom and options, it's easier to take action,
Mhm.
right? If you're like, I can take care of myself, I would rather be alone than with you. And you feel like you have more options, maybe it's just easier to make that choice. I don't know. I don't know. That would be like I could then go on many other reasons why. But maybe when you feel like you have more options, you don't have to tolerate a lot.
Foolishness. Foolishness. I'm going to say it for you, Heather. You don't have to tolerate foolishness.
There you go.
There you go. So, here's my next question. I wonder if housework is more balanced when the woman earns more. Does the man do more around the house?
So, what the research shows is that she's still doing more than 50% of the work at home, whether that's cleaning, housework, shopping, things with the children. And that I would say, Julie, that could be in part to a couple things. I have found um my experience that women do like, there are certain things we like to control because we know we do it better, right? Which is most everything at the house, but also the children, right? So there may be part of that women won't relinquish as much. And I think that is part of, how you figure out that partnership and when you say, because men aren't going to naturally know, oh yeah, probably should vacuum, generally speaking, or maybe I should mop. No, they're never going to think that. But if you say, listen, I need your help doing that, you have to take these responsibilities versus me, or you've got to plan the meals and make dinner this week versus me, or I think without that, it's not going to happen. Whereas most women who are going to naturally be a caregiver, they're just going to do it. And sometimes we just do it versus telling somebody else we want you to do it, and be okay with it not being perfect or the way you did it.
And sometimes it's easier to do it as opposed to go through the stress of telling someone this is something that you probably need to do.
Yeah, I think that goes into, how you communicate with your partner and, different things, and really knowing when you need to say, listen, I've got a busy week. I need you to carry this. And then actually I need you to start doing this. I'm not doing this anymore. And that's a very healthy thing to do, but I don't know that it always comes naturally. And hey, they may not have a spouse that's gonna do it, right? And I mean, I'll tell you, I gave up making school lunches like 10 years ago. I was like, I'm done. I don't have time. So that's my husband's job. And he takes great pride in it. And I'm glad. And then if he had to leave early one morning, I'm like, I got it. And at the end of the day, he'd be like, who made my lunch today? And I would look at him and I'd be like, don't admit that I made it, because I like slapped together some peanut butter and jelly, throw in a baggie and some chips and an orange. And they're like, where is my like Caesar salad that dad made? And he would wrap the silverware. I'm like, they can wait plasticware. Like, that's why I have no silverware in my house. I'm like, why? Don't even get me started. But it was so apparent if mom made the lunch, because I would just like throw it in the bag and there you go. Not all the time, but generally. And that's why I also gave it up, because they griped all the time. Like, fine, I'm not doing it anymore. But and so then versus, his lunches or whatever. Or I think I did something once where I made a sandwich like on a hamburger bun, because you're out of bread. Sometimes you're out of bread. Oh, I know you're laughing, but anyway, they would get really upset. Or a hot dog bun or something. I don't know, but you're like,
Heather, not the hot dog bun. Nope, no ma'am. No ma'am.
I've done it all, and that's why usually I'm like, no, I didn't make your lunch today. Or you run out of baggies, so I'm like, I just rolled up a bag of chips. There you go. But their dad, doles out 2 cookies, a piece of candy. Like, but he doesn't have to do hair and makeup in the morning, thank God. But so he has a lot more extra time than I do in the mornings. But like, that isn't everybody's situation, and so I get it. It's and it's hard. It's all a struggle. Nothing's really perfect, but there's a lot of work when two people are working. Doesn't matter who's earning more, but if you're both getting up and going and doing stuff, and there's the children, that takes a lot of management and a lot of communication, which we know when that breaks down, they end up, in our office. So
So, you know what? Exactly. And I was thinking that, that leaves a woman to feel unsupported at home, which that's when you have the conflict.
correct. And right, because yeah, and I think that is where that happens. And it is a struggle. You have to understand things, I think, that you need at home from your spouse or from hiring somebody to clean your house. That my husband used to get mad at me because, or not really, but like, oh, the kids aren't going to know how to do anything. I was like, I really don't care. Like, they do know how to do what they need to do to keep clean. But in order for me to still like the people I live with, like, y'all are a mess. Like, I need somebody to clean up so that when I come home, I am not, grouchy because, and I'm the worst. I can spot the dirt and the mess of the kitchen, even though maybe a gourmet meal, I'm like, did you have to use every pan in the house? Like, really? Um, but that's the way it works in our house. So I understand that there are so many things required in running a household. And then, you're working, running a business, and there is no such thing as balance. I think it's a kind of like a harmony or a way of, like, sometimes it's a little bit more in sync than others. And it really takes both the husband and wife really working together, recognizing each other's pulls and stressors, and working together. And when that doesn't happen, and when, we as women who have careers, and I'm going to say give up, or we allow, which is totally not true, right? Okay, but that's just like we look at it that way. I think allow our husband to take on more of the duties with the children. When the marriage is not going well, there are some men who will then use that against women. And I think when that's where we talk about things that have them concerned, right?
Mhm.
They're out there working and they start to feel like, now you're gonna punish me and say you're gonna take my kids away, because that's what they say to these women, and who are, doing what they want, their purpose, they're working towards their career. um and it's not to say they're not there with their kids, they're just saying, hey, maybe you can take on a little bit more. That's where, when we talk about the fear of the money on the other side, but I think most of us would realize, like, hey, the fear of somebody saying, I'm going to take your kids, presents, it's just a different level of fear and concern. But that I've heard, over and over again.
Is that, I wonder if, is that, well, okay. So when a woman makes more than a man, and possibly that situation that you just brought up that comes up, it makes him feel emasculated. And that's something a man never wants to feel.
Very, very possible. Like, absolutely. I think but that has more to do really with the relationship and less to do with the woman. Like, he's responsible for his own feelings, but you're responsible for yours. But yes, could you imagine that? I'm sure, if they want to feel that way. And I've certainly had cases in the past where the husband just stopped doing anything and didn't really want to do anything. And then that really does mess up a dynamic in a marriage for sure. And I don't think it always has to be that way, but that requires work by both parties to understand that, but certainly. And then, they're both going to act in a way that's going to cause resentment, anger, and conflict, right? Of course they will.
Yeah. And then I also think about this situation, society, it's not like this as much, but it's still like this. There's a norm, there's a gender role, and a man that doesn't make as much money as a woman, that they're looked at as not as less than.
I would say that is changing a lot.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, well, this has been a few years since we were in New York, and I'm just going to use this example because, hey, we're out here in Jacksonville and at the beach, different. We were in the city and we were in Brooklyn, and I'm telling you, there are dads with strollers all around the place. Moms must have been out working. So I do think that maybe when you have, like, it is changing, and I think there's, I'm sure, positive and negative with that, but yet there's more equality in marriages nowadays than, say, when my parents got married, and certainly my grandparents. And I think that that is, however they balance that out, I think so. Now, I think there are certainly areas in the country where people be like, what? Like, it would be different, right? Because there's going to be cultural and, areas where it's not as common. But I think we are seeing that change. So I don't buy into that as much. And I think we will, because I know, Ian, even though, yes, I am so young, but we operate differently. And I know my kids and the 20-year-olds and millennial, like it's going to be different, right? Because they have seen it now happening for so long. They're all part of these kids where everybody's going to school, and it's not women don't go to school. My mom stayed at home. Not so much of them now in most areas. I would say, that I think we're going to see that. I do think that I don't disagree with there is a basic part of men, women, and different energies, and again, a whole Tony Robbins thing that's valid and that is true. But we as a society are seeing more of that. Men now aren't afraid to say, oh, no, judge, I can't go to the hearing that day because I've got to pick my kid up from school, as if it's some great feat. But women would never say that. Not when I first started 20, however plus years ago. I would never have said that. I would have felt like I would have been looked upon as weak. But now men are, yay, oh, wow, what a great dad, because you do those kind of things. So it's different. It's definitely different.
You're listening to Women Winning Divorce with Heather Quick, owner and attorney of Florida Women's Law Group. Today's topic is divorce and the female breadwinner. More. Stay with us. Welcome back to Women Winning Divorce with Heather Quick, owner and attorney of Florida Women's Law Group. Today's topic, divorce and the female breadwinner. So, Heather, when we think about divorce for the female breadwinner, it has different implications, right?
Yeah, it does, because of all the things we always talk about, how money, and people think of money differently. And I think that women, we talked about in the earlier segment, they tend to carry at very least equal responsibilities from the home. If not, they tend to do more, even when they're working full time. And that has been around for a long time. Like, those are just basic stats. And so then they may have even more of a resentment about, what, I might have to pay him spousal support because I do everything and work. And so there is some of that for sure. I think that they have to kind of understand and really evaluate their situation about, because that their perspective of the money is going to be a bit different.
Okay. I'm trying to think how I can say this. Will it be a little more skewed to make them feel a certain way, as in, all of this is mine, you get nothing? You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It does. And I think on one hand, it is harder for women to think, wait, we are sharing this, versus men. They kind of know, right? Or there is this expectation. Well, yeah, I've been supporting everybody, so I get it a little bit more. But for women, we've talked about this on alimony. I know men hate to pay alimony, but man, if a woman thinks she's going to have to pay alimony, that's something that's very difficult to stomach.
That would be, I know I've said before, I would love to be a fly on the wall in like a court. Whenever you go to court, that would be a situation I would love to be a fly on the wall, even though I know I can't and that would never happen. But it's just, I would love to hear it from their perspective. I really would.
And I think that's something else, like where we talked in the last segment, how I do think that the roles of parents are merging and there's more of a shared responsibility within a marriage. I think we're going to see more of maybe a change as well in those expectations of husband and wife. Because, okay, now, like, I'm going to talk about, say, an example where, imagine that Leave It to Beaver, whatever, right? And she was always busy, dressed perfectly as the mom who stayed home. So we know she's getting alimony, right? She's getting permanent alimony. But there is a perception that June and Ward, I don't know. I don't really even know their names. But if the dad had been the one at home, like, oh, remember Mr. Mom? Okay, Mr. Mom, Michael Keaton. In the first half, he's like on the couch, getting fat, watching soap operas, eating chips. So see, that's the perception that you try to make to the judge, which it doesn't matter, really. Like the law says, even if you sat home and did nothing, you guys, like, it's still shared and you may still have to support them, whether you're a man or a woman. But there's going to still be those bias that come in because judges are humans. So, but I'm saying that's going to go away. That may still be some of it, but not as much anymore, because I think previously, like you said, if the husband's staying home, or, what are people going to think, society and all these things. I think that movie came out in the 80s, and that was the idea. Oh, well, if the dad's staying home, like, he's just a good for nothing, whatever, laying there being a slob. And I think we're going to see a change in that from a whole society, say over the next 20 years. And it's not going to be perceived that way, that we can envision it was in the past. And hey, it's not that I haven't tried to make that very similar argument in the past, and somewhat successful, but it's really just the facts and circumstances, as I've always said, and but I think in the past, there would be judges who would be more open to those types of interpretations, as well. If the husband's not working and making money, he must be lazy, good for nothing, versus if the mom isn't, she's being a mom and she's taking care of the house and doing all these other things.
That's interesting. So one of the things you said, it's about the facts, right? So if we think about it, if you are a business owner, an entrepreneur, an executive, one of the things when you're thinking about divorce, it's still, you have to understand the finances, right? You need to understand all of that.
Right. And, not only the finances, because when we talk about divorce, we talk about alimony, splitting the assets. Alimony is the core. A lot of factors go into it. The need and ability to pay. So you may have the ability to pay as the woman who's making more. And then what we begin to look at, well, does he really have the need? He makes enough, and what is he going to need? And so that's where that comes into it. Again, that's expenses, budget, understanding the finances. That's the job of the lawyer on either side to, look at, well, what is that true need?
Oh, Heather, I just had a thought.
Okay.
Okay, so, all right, you talked about need. Okay, so when we think about child support, right?
Mm-hmm.
Will he have to contribute?
Well, yeah. I mean, that now child support's different. Okay, we were just talking about alimony, need and ability to pay. Child support, at its very basic, if I were to tell you what matters, it's income of each party and overnights. That is what runs the day as far as, how much is going to be owed or not owed. And it's really that. It's that basic. There are a lot of different things we can put into it, a lot of ways we can affect the numbers a little bit, but the biggest shifts in the numbers. So you have your income, he has his income, and then there's the overnights, and then there's going to be other things that will adjust it, but that is what we look at the most. So yes, he very well may. When it's depending on what costs you cover for the children, meaning health insurance and things like that, daycare. So there's a lot of different things that come into play with that, for sure.
Okay. And I know I kind of got sidetracked a little bit there, but I was thinking, I know we're talking about alimony, but just that also made me think about child support. If he was not the main breadwinner, will he have to pay it? So that's like a whole nother show. That's exciting. Okay. So now, All right. So if we go back to finances, all the things that need to be considered. What are some of the other things besides just bank accounts? There are other like major things that need to be considered as well, right?
Well, absolutely. We've got to, okay, well, one, if you own a business,
Mhm.
that really is its own set of things that we have to determine, from income, benefits, and the value of the business in and of itself. That's a big thing. When you are an executive, there's stock options. That's again a whole nother show that when you look into that, it's not just cut and dry. um 401ks. Sometimes there aren't as many nowadays, but some companies still have a pension, things that are a little bit different. Again, those need to be valued. And then joint assets, and like we talked about, homes, second homes, any debts, um anything that you guys have acquired during the marriage. Gotta look at all of those things.
What about before the marriage? What if she's always been, a big shot, right? What if she's always been an executive? You know what I mean? What about before the marriage?
Well, like yourself, Julie, you're a big shot. And what are you going to do before you get married? You're going to have your prenup. But if you didn't, then we need to evaluate that. And it's going to depend. Hopefully, there are some things that still have, maybe they may not be totally non-marital, right? But there will be a non-marital component, and that'll be an evaluation, um, mathematical one. If, say, she owned the house, they moved into her house, she never put his name on it, it's still her house. Maybe there is a marital component, but it's still your house. If you put his name on it, or you sold it, y'all bought one together, it's all going to be marital. Your 401k, your investments from your employment, we will do an evaluation of what was premarital. That's important, because generally all that, first, um, deposits, and what it started with, there's all the compound interest. So that's a complicated mathematical evaluation, but yet very important, because will be to your benefit to show that non-marital component. And so then it doesn't take it like 50-50. And even, let's say, hey, you're like, hey, I had 100,000 in my retirement before we got married. Now it's 500,000. And so simple math, that would not be the right way. You'd say, okay, well, we're going to subtract 100 from 500. That's 400. We're going to split 400. But no, when you have an actual forensic accountant, they're going to tell you, well, that 100,000 was responsible for, an additional 200,000. Now the marital is going to be less. Anyway, like I said, to benefit that premarital part. So there's a lot, that you should absolutely look at and consider. And I don't know, we probably talked about it on a show, but women are getting married later, and they're entering the marriage with more than they did, say, traditionally, 20 years ago. So it's valuable to look at that and understand it.
Okay. So what about this? Let's think about this. All righty, this is part of your scenario. What if I owned a home before I got married? He moved in. I never put his name on the house. Would part of that be marital because you've had improvements in the house? He's obviously lived there. I mean, can you kick him out? Will the judge say that that's okay? That type of thing. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, totally. That's where I said, okay, I would say your home's not marital, but there's going to be a marital component. And we're going to have to do that evaluation, because not only, because you're sad, like the mortgage payments, improvements, reduction in the debt. Yes. Yes. So again, you need the attorney, and sometimes we get the forensic accountants to do it for us. But yes, it is. You want to look at it. Don't just leave that on the table. At least know what that is ahead of time, and then you can make decisions based on that.
Okay. Okay. Now tell me this. What if, okay, so I have a business and I have treated him as an employee.
Hmm.
That seems like that opens up a whole nother can of worms.
Well, okay, it could be good and bad. Like one, okay, if you paid him with the W-2, that's good because then he has evidence of earnings, and so then you say, well, yeah, he can go get a job. Look, he made this here, so right, could be good. But if he didn't do anything and you paid him for that anyway, then you there may be an alimony issue for sure. Yeah.
Oh boy. Heather, sometimes I like your answers and sometimes not so much, but I
I
know.
don't always like giving those answers either. I'm very pro women. I
Yeah.
don't want them to have to pay anything.
Yeah. But I know you always tell the truth. So I can definitely appreciate that. You're listening to Women Winning Divorce with Heather Quick, owner and attorney of Florida Women's Law Group. Today's topic, divorce and the female breadwinner. We have so much more. Stay with us. Welcome back to Women Winning Divorce with Heather Quick, owner and attorney of Florida Women's Law Group. Today's topic, divorce and the female breadwinner. Heather, I was thinking about this. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. What do you think is, I mean, seriously, that's the way I look at this. I mean, how long would you really have to pay alimony to your husband? Think about men and their habits.
Yes. So, I mean, well, one, hopefully for as little as possible. But the good news is, statistically, men tend to remarry faster. So that is, all you can hope for. But but it's not, it doesn't have to be as dire because again, you just need to know. And I will tell you one thing about that is like, particularly if you're, in your late 40s, early 50s, but man, you just been killing it and your trajectory is only going up, but you're unhappy in your marriage, wouldn't you rather divide a smaller pot than a bigger one? And so at the very least, I know you're like, yes, you agree. So, but again, I'm not going to make that decision for anyone, but honestly, and I tell that to women and, when their husband is like, I know he's going to complain about splitting everything down the middle, but based on their career trajectory, they're going to recoup it all. And when you're not that, executive, you don't have that option. That's why it's so important to fight for all that. And again, so for the women, it's like, well, yes, but one, it's a no fault state. At any time, if he wants a divorce, he can get that as well, right? And do you really want to be getting a divorce when you're 60, when you have an option, at 40 or 50? And you may not, but at least it gives you food for thought, right? To think about it. And yes, he may remarry, and they tend to. And there is a law, that will terminate alimony if they cohabitate. So if they're just living with somebody, so there are options, right? And men do tend to, get remarried faster. So that is a plus. That is a silver lining.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Light at the end of the tunnel. I like it. Okay, Heather, wait a minute. We may have talked about this before, but a law that says what if you cohabitate?
So you can terminate alimony if the person receiving alimony is, living in a romantic relationship, living with somebody. So because that's been around now for a long time without dating myself, but it didn't used to be. And so I will tell you, women receiving alimony, they'll be like, I'm not marrying you. Why would I do that and ruin my alimony? But we can live together. So, I think then obviously the legislature's like, all right, that's not cool, and so there is now a law, and it's a pretty tough burden, I will tell you, knowing the statute as far as how to prove it. However, we always advise our clients, if you are receiving alimony, that is not a good idea. They will, if they find out, they will then try to go terminate your alimony. So you need to, not do that.
Right.
Or not get caught. But that never happens. I'll tell you, they always know. They're writing that check every month. They are, as you would be too, inclined to be like, hey, if I hear something, I want to investigate that for sure. So that would be, it used to be kind of a way around it, which makes sense, but now it's like, there's ways to protect yourself from that. But
Mhm. With all of our topics, really, I think about it and it all comes down to something, and we usually start off with it: educate yourself, right?
absolutely. And you know when there's all, in most divorces there is money on the table to be gained, to be lost, if you don't know what your options are, you don't know what it is. So, and I would say all circumstances you educate yourself, but if you're the one who is the executive, and particularly because I know that there are different fears in the women, particularly with children, or with what's the debt or what's going to happen. You want answers, and a lot of times you want answers that I can't give you, but at least like you said, you don't like that answer, and I understand that. And that's our job as attorneys, to tell you basically the truth, maybe not necessarily what you want to know, but what you, or what you want to hear, but what you need to hear, what the reality is. And then you can at least make an educated decision, right, on which way you're going to go. But you absolutely want to educate yourself, understand your options, which way things can go before you spring this on your husband. As always, I always advise that. Not everybody always follows that advice, but that's the smart way to go about this.
hmm So there are two people that should become your friend: a divorce attorney and.
Your financial planner.
hmm hmm Yeah, because that's who's going to help you get to the point where you need to be so you can make the next step.
Absolutely. And a lot of folks will say, well, and I did this and I did that. And your financial planner, just to give you information, talk to if you really are thinking about divorce, don't take any major action before talking to the divorce attorney. Oh, I talked to my financial planner, and so I paid off all his credit card debt.
Oh
Yeah,
no.
wouldn't have told you to do that. So not really in your best interest in a divorce. So they provide good information. If you want a divorce, talk to a divorce attorney and understand the legal implications, and how, again, to get an advantage, and how to be strategic.
Mm. Okay, Heather, I want to ask a question about that, but I'm going to go on. Okay, so tell me this: would a post-nup be beneficial for someone that's a boss? You know what I mean?
Heck yeah, if you can give him a reason to sign it, do it. I don't
Mm,
know why he would sign it, but
okay, okay. Let's explore this. Let's explore this. I mean,
you got to look at what's in it for him.
mhm.
So, because those are not, you can't force him to sign it, Julie. I know you're thinking, oh, if I tell him to sign it, he's going to sign it. Well, no, it don't work like that. It has to be consensual. So I know you're just shocked. What? You tell him to sign it? No. So, I mean, he has to have a reason that he would sign a post-nup. But yes, great thing. But if you come to me saying, I think he should sign a post-nup, and I'm going to say, well, what's in it for him? Why is he going to sign it? And you don't know, then we're probably not going to get him to sign
Okay, Heather. Okay, hold on, hold on, hold
it.
on. Okay. So tell me this. Tell me this. So would that be a reason, something you mentioned earlier? Let's say, okay, I want you to sign a post-nup. If you do, I'll pay off all your credit cards. I don't know. I mean, could that be a reason?
There can, yes. The most common, I
Okay.
will tell you, is that there's been infidelity on one side or another, and then this will help us bridge that trust divide that we've had, and we're going to sign this, so that then I know if you cheat again, if we get a divorce, whatever, this is the way it'll end up. That would be the most common, but there could be debt things. There could be something somebody's done, and you're saying, you know what, I think I'll give it another shot, but this is a condition. This is what I want. Hey, you have all this debt. You want me to pay it off, but if I do, I want to sign a post-nup. I think that seems like a valid thing to do.
Oh boy. Oh, so many places. I'm looking at the time like, okay, we don't have that much time left. So I can't go in all these different directions. But it sounds like um, if you're going to go in any route as far as divorce is concerned, and we come back to this a lot too, you have to compromise. But I don't know, you don't really like that word.
Uh, but it is the reality. It is the reality. And there's the difference between a smart compromise. You can still get what you want and you compromise. And you've just gotta see, like, hey, what is my long-term goal, my vision, my life? How much is this gonna really matter down the road? Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. And that is understand we all have emotions, but making decisions that are going to help you ultimately achieve your long-term goals and outcomes. And that's why I always focus on that. And I say, hey, well, that's what we do. We plan a strategy for a divorce based on their outcomes and goals, because then it's easier to say, I know this makes you angry, I know this seems unreasonable, but if we compromise here, you can still get from A to Z. And what if that takes 3 months longer than you really hoped, but yet you're still going to get what you want?
Mhm.
Then that doesn't hurt as much. And then you can be like, you're right. There's our feelings I have, but I see, the light at the end of the tunnel and I know where I want to get. That is ultimately the best way we can guide clients through a divorce.
So treat this as a business transaction. You're an entrepreneur, you are the breadwinner. Treat this as a business transaction.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you got to give a little to get a little sometimes. And generally, each of you want different things. So there's a way to still win at divorce, but maybe there's a compromise because you're getting what you want. You're not making him lose. You're getting where you want to be. And ultimately, that's your freedom. And it's to go on with your life in a better and healthier fashion.
So is it, well, okay, I kind of want to go back to the post-nup thing. I have a feeling that you don't get too many men walk into your office that to sign a post-nup. I'm not asking you to answer that. Um, but I just have that feeling, you know? I mean, I wonder how common it is in general.
It's probably more on the minority, but it's an option. You know what? And the more that people understand it's an option and it's a way many times for both folks to achieve an outcome they want, it works. It's a great tool to know that exists, may work in certain situations.
Mhm. Yeah. It's an option. It's an
It's an
option.
option. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah. So is it possible that she may feel like or realize that, you know what? I like my life after divorce and this was the right way to go.
I find most people do. It's a difficult thing, as we know. Under any and all circumstances, there is a period of sadness, anger, all those emotions. And if you are able to see that the positive and the opportunities outside of it, I think that most people do. And ideally, they learn from it. They learn who they were in that relationship and they take the good, but they understand what parts of that didn't work well and learn from it. Like we all want to learn from our experiences, and some of us have to learn, by experiences more than reading in a book, myself included. And so, I think that, like we talk about, you're either moving forward and growing or not. And so if this is the path, if this is really where, when the marriage has to end, try to go through it gracefully, intelligently, and strategically.
Any parting words?
Well, as always, Julie, for any of our listeners who this resonates with, who have questions and think that they may be in need of some advice and going through a divorce, please reach out to us at Florida Women's Law Group, where you can also find a lot of information on our site, but also Women Winning Divorce, all of our prior episodes, which we touch on just about everything over the past year. So please reach out for you or someone you know, because we are absolutely here to help you.
Heather, it is always a pleasure for the final time.
Oh, thank you so much, Julie. It has been great, and Happy New Year to you.
Thank you for listening to Women Winning Divorce. We hope you found information to help you navigate your divorce. If you like our show, please take the time to subscribe and provide a 5-star review. If you need more information, please visit our website at womenwinningdivorce.com, where you will find previous episodes and other helpful content. Join us next week as we continue our journey of women winning divorce.
So, tell me about last night.
Well, it wasn't what I expected. It had the perfect amount of spice.
Sounds hot.
It had all the flavor, and I wanted more. The ghost pepper wings from Popeyes are just so delicious.
Wait, I thought you were talking about your date.
Sometimes things aren't always as they seem, like Popeye's ghost pepper wings that have the perfect level of kick and flavor. Try them for only $5 today. Limited time at participating U.S. restaurants. Price may vary. Tax extra.
Love that chicken from Popeyes.